This program brought to you by Macca's, where for Aussie legends, Olympian or not. Danker Rub, don't just rub it, Danker Rub it. And new Mazda BT50, it's one tough office.
Coming up on AFL Tonight, the Suns' young gun, Jaeger O'Meara, wants out of the Gold Coast. Our chief reporter, Jake Nile, has got the inside word on his next move. The man at the centre of the Kangaroos' cull calls for peace ahead of North's push for September. And we head to Sydney to chat to Giants big man Shane Mumford on the eve of the club's first finals campaign. Hello, I'm Sarah Jones and this is AFL Tonight. A bombshell coming out of the Gold Coast with young midfielder Jaeger O'Meara requesting a move away from the club. O'Meara joins fellow want-away Dion Prestia, who has also told the Suns he wants to move interstate. The 2013 rising star hasn't played in the AFL for 2 years due to a knee injury. His coach spoke earlier today but refused to comment on the future of both players. O'Meara doesn't qualify as a free agent and will have no say in his destination, leaving the 22-year-old's future in the hands of his current club. While AFL Tonight reported last week that Prestia is interested in a move to Richmond. And here is the statement from the Suns chairman. After 5 years and 44 games, Jaeger O'Meara has notified the club he wishes to find a new home interstate in 2017. As Jaeger doesn't qualify as a free agent, AFL rules dictates that he holds no rights to determine his destination of choice. With that being the case, Jaeger is on the market to a club that can provide us with compensation we are prepared to accept. Should an appropriate exchange not be met, he will have the option to enter the draft. On to today's other big story, and Brent Harvey has broken his silence over his brutal axing. He hasn't been able to speak publicly, but he has released a statement. Our reporter Drew Jones is at Arden Street. And Drew, how has Boomer reacted?
Good evening to you, Sarah. Well, he's upset. He's denied that he's angry, but certainly I think we can say, it's fair to say that this decision didn't necessarily come as a massive shock to him. It's now round 23. He hadn't received a contract offer, so he went to Brad Scott, his coach, and he wanted a straight answer. He wanted to know where he stood, and he got a pretty straight answer. Sarah, we know that he won't be at the club next season. So we tried to talk to him yesterday. As he said in the statement, he wasn't willing to speak publicly, and that's probably understandable. He was pretty upset and wanted to confer with his management. But he has released a statement today via Instagram, and it was addressed directly to the fans. He says, "Right now I feel a bit flat and sad because I won't be playing at North Melbourne next year. But that was always going to be the case no matter when my career at Arden Street ended. I need you all to know that I'm okay with what's happened. Brad and those in charge had a tough decision to make. I'm not angry at them about it all and have been in footy long enough to understand how it all works and that no individual is ever bigger than the club. I was given the opportunity, along with Drew, Spud and Dal, to speak to the media yesterday, but physically couldn't. I would have broken down and I didn't want to do that. I want to be clear that it wasn't because we were angry, like some people are suggesting. After the season, I'll weigh everything up with my family and manager." So, Sarah, important to note there that he's discussing perhaps his future. Now, his manager has been on record saying that it's very unlikely that he'll want to play at another club next season, but I think he has left the door ajar slightly, perhaps for rival clubs to at least inquire with him in the off-season. And also, Sarah, an online petition has started with North Melbourne fans who want him to stay. They want North Melbourne to backflip and offer him a one-year contract. 3,000 signatures, and we expect there will be some sort of protest at the match at Etihad Stadium on Saturday night against GWS.
Drew, it was North Melbourne's day off, but I understand some players filtered through the club. How have his teammates taken the news?
Yeah, I think their thoughts probably echo the entire AFL community, which is they were shocked by the timing, and probably because Brent Harvey's been playing such great footy. We heard Brad Scott say after his milestone game that he'd reached it at the peak of his powers, and only last week against Sydney, one of the premiership fancies, had 30 possessions and kicked 3 goals. So certainly he's been playing good footy and his teammates were a bit shocked. It was their day off today. They had their main training session yesterday and they'll have their captain's run tomorrow before the match on Saturday. But a few players did filter through and we spoke to them a little earlier on.
We're just going to concentrate on the finals coming up. So we've got a game on Saturday and then a final series. So we're just going to concentrate on that and yeah, that'll be it. We're still up and about. We've just got to concentrate on playing games now. So looking forward to playing GWS Saturday and then, yeah, the final series coming up.
It wasn't unexpected, but I think it's just the timing. We didn't really have a bit of time to digest it. It's only happened yesterday. They've been great service to our footy club. They've had a lot to do with me, especially Boomer and Drury. Those guys have taught me a lot. That yeah, we'll definitely miss them around the place next year. But I guess it wasn't my choice. So we'll just support them for the time being, and I'm sure they'll get a pretty good farewell.
OK, thanks very much to Drew Jones there at Arden Street. Chris Scott says he feels great empathy for his brother Brad following Brent Harvey's controversial sacking. More pressing for the Cats coach is securing a top 4 spot and replacing a star defender. Julian De Stoop has more from Geelong.
Geelong has had a fairly good run with injury this year, but right on the eve of the finals, they've lost one of their most important players, Lachie Henderson. The former Blue had arthroscopic surgery on his knee earlier this week, and whether he can play any role in the Cats finals campaign is a question Chris Scott can't answer at this stage.
More hopeful than confident, yeah. Obviously, there's a little water to flow under the bridge with his recovery. The prognosis is an optimistic one, but I'm also not going to speculate as to how long we're going to play into September.
A more immediate concern for Scott is securing a top 4 spot and a double chance. That certainly won't be easy against a Melbourne side that beat the Cats here at Simmons Stadium last year, and that will be desperate to farewell Paul Roos in style.
We've been watching them for a while. They're playing very differently to the way they have in previous years, and they're dangerous. They can score, they're good around the contest. We think they're going to be a very good team in the future.
In recent years, Scott has had to end the careers of some Geelong greats, including Paul Chapman and Steve Johnson. Yesterday, it was his brother's turn, Brad at North Melbourne, when it came to Brent Harvey. While Chris wouldn't comment whether it was the right or wrong decision, he certainly has some empathy for his twin.
It's brutal. It's the hardest thing that you do as a team. I know the coach is front and centre, but these things are team and club decisions. When I say team, it's a big group of decision makers who arrive at these decisions, and I know from personal experience they're not decisions that are made lightly.
Jimmy Bartell's future beyond this season remains up in the air. He will return this week after being rested against the Lions, but in terms of whether he plays next year, that's not something Scott has to worry about.
We couldn't have been clearer. I'm a little bit frustrated with the length of the questioning, to be honest. Jimmy's got a contract for next year. The ball is completely in his court on this one.
If the latter remains as it is, the Cats will travel to Adelaide next week for a qualifying final against the Crows, most likely on Thursday night.
Adelaide's quest for a home qualifying final is in their grasp. They just need to beat West Coast in tomorrow night's blockbuster at Adelaide Oval. But they'll have to do it with a couple of forced changes to the side. Tom Wilson has the latest.
Yes, the Crows are expected to make up to 2 changes for their clash against West Coast at Adelaide Oval tomorrow night. Rory Sloane is suspended and Cam Ellis-Yeoman is in the box seat to replace him. And the other one is Ricky Henderson. He's likely to come in for Brodie Smith, who is battling concussion.
Obviously missing the game, the rest of the game, he was probably a bit sluggish on the Saturday and the Monday, but he's been improving as the week's gone on, which is great.
Pike says it'll be a finals-like atmosphere at Adelaide Oval tomorrow night, especially with so much on the line for both clubs. For the Crows, they can guarantee a top 2 spot with a win. And while the Eagles will be without ruckman Nick Naitanui, Pike believes the league has underestimated the type of form West Coast are in.
Their recent form's fantastic. They've beaten GWS 2 weeks ago and Hawthorn last week, who are both sitting in the top 4. So their form's good. They've lost 1 game since we last played them, so everyone's sort of saying, "Oh, West Coast is sleeping." No, I think they're a really strong footy team, and they've got some quality players, and they'll be coming here with the same intent that we have. So it sets up for a really good clash.
Out-of-contract midfielder Jared Lyons is having a breakout season in 2016 and is in negotiations with the club to secure a new contract. The other one is veteran midfielder Scott Thompson. He's on record saying he wants to play on next year, but the club says they won't make a call on his future until the end of the season.
He's been really solid, for us in terms of his form. I mean, he played really well against Fremantle a couple of weeks ago. It's always interesting when people talk about Tomo. There's Tomo the midfielder, and then there's Tomo the 33-year-old midfielder, and people sort of get edgy about the fact that he's 33. So as long as he's able to perform, play his role, and he has been doing that, then he continues to hold his spot in the team.
Let's head to the set of league teams where coaching legend David Parkin joins us now. Parko, you've written an article for foxfooty.com.au about your experiences of sacking much-loved players. How tough is it to get right?
Sarah, I think it's the most difficult thing that any coach, probably at any level of football, has to do. I think sacking a young bloke when he hasn't really got started and therefore smashing his dreams is difficult. But what the two Scotts, I guess, in the last couple of years have had to do is the most difficult task that can be allocated to a senior coach.
Now, Lockie Henderson certainly hasn't been the Cats' most high-profile recruit, but he's been incredibly important. How badly do they need him back this year? Oh,
I think they acknowledged in recruiting him, Sarah, that he was critical. I know he's played most down back and probably his best position, but I know he went forward and filled that hole as well. He'll be sadly missed in terms of their efforts in the finals if he's unable to appear.
Thanks very much, Parko. A big teams tonight is coming up as the boys look at all the selections for the final home and away round of the season. That is from 6:30 p.m. Eastern. And remember, you can keep across all the latest footy news wherever you are via the Fox Sports app. Simply live stream AFL Tonight. Coming up, more on our top story as the Suns are set to lose Jaeger O'Meara. Jake Nile has more details. And Shane Mumford is standing by in Sydney. Will Saturday's game against North be a dress rehearsal for week 1 of the finals? Welcome back to AFL Tonight. I'm Sarah Jones. Well, there's no doubt Shane Mumford sets the tone for the Giants, and we head to Sydney now where the star ruckman joins me. Shane, how crucial will your physicality and also your experience be come this finals campaign?
Well, hopefully it's not just on me. We've got a lot of experienced guys there now. And there's a few other guys that really set the standard with the hardness as well. So obviously I get the first crack at it with the first centre bounce, but other than that, hopefully the other boys will be on very quickly.
But first, of course, you have North Melbourne this week. What are you expecting from them after the emotional few days that they've had?
Obviously it's going to be a big weekend for their footy club, but that's not going to change the way we go out there and attack them this weekend. It's not going to change basically any way we plan for playing them.
Were you surprised that Brent Harvey wasn't offered another deal? He's certainly one of the most celebrated players in the game and has been having a cracking season.
I guess, yeah, each footy club's got to make decisions on each different case. So it's probably, I'm not in a position to really comment. That's North Melbourne's business.
The Giants gave Stevie J another chance and he's certainly flourished. Could you do the same with Boomer if he wanted to play on?
I think he'd probably, most clubs would like to have him, but yeah, Stevie J's been brilliant for us this year. The way he's come up and his leadership, not just the way he's playing some brilliant footy, but the way he directs and encourages some of our small and tall forwards, it's brilliant.
Do you expect some of the younger guys to pick the brains of Stevie J and yourself, guys that have played in big finals before and have that experience, just because they haven't been there?
Yes and no. I think they'll probably go more to Stevie. He's played in a lot more bigger games than I have, and he's definitely played some great footy in them games. So he'd be the one I'd be going to, that's for sure.
Now, this weekend you'll line up against one of the game's best ruckmen in Todd Goldstein. How much do you set yourself for these big duels?
Yeah, well, it was one I was setting myself for last year. I think he came up against us the week after I did my ankle, so that was a bit of a downer. I haven't played against Todd in a long time now, so it's a massive challenge for me and one I can't wait to get out there and have.
Are they the kind of contests you really relish when you know you're going up against one of the premier ruckmen in the game?
Yeah, definitely. You love the big stage and the big challenge, and probably doesn't get much harder than Todd when he's at his best.
There's so much up for grabs for you guys this week, a top 4 spot, a home final. Does it feel like a high-stakes game? Has the intensity around the club lifted?
Yeah, it probably has a little bit. We could almost call this a first final for us. We really want to get the win, and I guess we're relying on someone else to lose to get our spot back in the top 4. But yeah, we've just got to go out there and focus on us this weekend and obviously try and get the win over North.
Now, it is quite likely that you could meet them in the first week of the finals. What does that do for the preparations this week?
I don't think it changes the preparation at all. You've got to go out there and play our game this weekend and see how that goes first before you even start thinking about next week.
Who would you rate as the flag favourite now as we sit here going into the final round? Obviously, then we've got the bye week. Who do you think is the team to beat?
As much as it hurts me to say, probably the Swans. I think they've got pretty much a complete package there, so I'll have to back them in. Other than us, that is.
Of course. We look forward to seeing you in action on the weekend and cannot wait to see the Giants in this maiden finals campaign. It is really going to be history-making stuff.
Definitely exciting. Can't wait to get out there.
All right, let's head now to the set of AFL 360 where Gerard Whateley is standing by. Gerard, a Jaeger bombshell today, and the Suns are taking a really hardline stance. What do you make of it all?
Well, they've opted straight for a war footing, Sarah. They've had 3 months to get used to the idea that this day was coming, so they've quite deliberately chosen their strategy. I would question it on this front as they might need O'Meara's help to come to a satisfactory outcome here, because it's entirely possible that his preferred way might end up being Essendon, and thus he could walk there through the pre-season draft and leave the Suns with 0 in terms of something coming back the other way.
All right, we will watch this space on that. It's going to be a very interesting off-season. What about the post-mortems on North's decision on Brent Harvey? In true classy style, he tried to ease the tension a bit today. Was that just another sign of his loyalty to the footy club?
Yes, I think the word you used, class, and I also think there's a debt of gratitude both ways, from North Melbourne to Harvey and from Harvey to North Melbourne. So he doesn't want the place burnt down on the way out, and that pleading for calm serves the purposes of all, I think, heading into round 23 and then however long their final series comes from. So this is actually what needed to be part of yesterday, but the fact that it comes now at least can becalm the waters a bit.
Gerard, looking forward to seeing Jason Dunstall alongside you tonight at the 360 desk. Also Brian Lake and Dyson Heppel will be along. Big Sauce Merritt from the Brisbane Lions, and Mac Horton will play the weekend forecast fresh off his Rio adventure. Catch it, of course, from 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Well, the massive story today developing surrounds Jaeger O'Meara. So let's check in with our chief AFL reporter, Jake Nile. Jake, can you tell us what is the latest here?
Well, the most important fact, Sarah, is that Jaeger O'Meara spoke to the playing group at about 12:30 today, and the Suns, and he told them that he wants to go to Melbourne. So, unless it seems all but certain that Jaeger O'Meara will be playing for a Melbourne club next year. He told Rodney Eade and Marcus Ashcroft, the coach and head of football at the Suns, late yesterday that he wanted out. I don't think it's a huge surprise. The Suns had offered him, increased their offer to him to more than $750,000 over 2 years pretty recently, as I think they got a bit concerned that he was going.
Likely suitors, Jake, who's in the best placed position to pick him up?
Well, if all goes badly, Essendon are in a good position, and I've spoken to the Bombers. I can confirm they are interested in Jaeger O'Meara, as you would expect. They're on the bottom of the ladder, so that is pole position. However, Carlton have indicated they've got some interest along the way. Hawthorn have long been linked to him, but of course they're also linked to Tom Mitchell. So if it was a batting order, I would guess Mitchell would be ahead of O'Meara, given his physical condition is better. But there could be quite a number of other clubs. North Melbourne is one that there's clearly speculation about, and St Kilda are interested. But I spoke to St Kilda yesterday, and St Kilda actually at the time, it's interesting, they felt that he would stay.
All
and
right,
they were wrong, clearly.
You are at Whitten Oval at the moment. You spoke to Luke Dalhouse. What was on the agenda?
A lot of talk about the finals and how the Bulldogs have managed to hold it together in what has been a very difficult year with the injuries they've had. And you can sense from talking to Dalhouse the confidence that this group have got. They don't see themselves as making up the numbers. They think they can do it. They're not daunted by the injuries they've had, particularly in the midfield, where most teams would have succumbed by now. And it looks like if they beat Fremantle, they'll win 16 games, Sarah, and that's remarkable. A, for a team with their injuries. B, to not make the top 4, that number. But, should they win, they should get a home final, and they'll be a very dangerous team, even with the injuries they've got. Another question I asked him was about Travis Cloke and or even Drew Petrie, whether he would welcome that sort of player. And, of course, he said yes, he would welcome to get a player of that quality into the club. So it'll be interesting to see what the Bulldogs do in their post-season, but I think we can safely say they're not a suitor for Jaeger O'Meara.
All right, Jake, thanks so much. We look forward to seeing that interview with Luke Dalhouse a little later on. Well, the Swans have shown they've got a remarkable depth this season. He may not have the profile of some of his star-studded teammates, but ruckman Sam Naismith is shaping up as a key part of the Swans' premiership push. The 24-year-old has featured in Sydney's past 7 games and today reflected on his resurgence after 3 injury-riddled years.
It's not great to come in as a new player and have about 3 years of injuries set you back, so that's pretty frustrating. But I've learned a lot in that time, and big thing that came out of that is resilience and trying to get my body right to withstand AFL footy.
Naismith's turnaround was given another boost last week when he held his spot in the Swans 22 ahead of Toby Nankervis following Kurt Tippett's return. Hawthorn forward Paul Puopolo has signed a 1-year contract extension that will keep him at Waverley until the end of 2018. The 28-year-old has kicked 32 goals this season and joins fellow premiership players Luke Hodge, Josh Gibson and Sean Burgoyne in recently recommitting to the Hawks. Demon fans, old and young, turned out to farewell coach Paul Roos. The master coach has become a favourite with Melbourne supporters, with the 53-year-old guiding the D's from the depths of the ladder to challenging for finals. Roos mixed with fans ahead of the Demons' last main training session before taking on Geelong on Saturday.
Fans have been fantastic, not just in my time, but obviously before that. It's been a pretty tough road, so hopefully they can see some light at the end of the tunnel now. And look, I'm excited for what the fans are going to see for the next 3 to 5 years, and I think they're going to be really pleased about going to footy.
Roos will coach one last time on Saturday against the Cats before Simon Goodwin takes over. Jeff Garlett looks set to return to face Geelong after a foot injury, but Dean Kent looks unlikely to play after training away from the main group. The Magpies bid farewell to 3 premiership players this week: Dane Swan, Alan Tuvey and Brent McCaffer. Will it be a 4th farewell with Travis Cloke on Sunday?
Last game for 2016. No, that's an external story, it's not ours.
The Pies finished the season against the Hawthorn side, who need to win to finish top 4. Collingwood has lost their last 8 matches against the Hawks, dating back to the 2011 preliminary final. Veteran Port forward Jay Schultz will play his last game for the Power against Gold Coast on Saturday night after he was told he won't be offered a contract next season. The 31-year-old season has been crippled by a back injury. He kicked 262 goals in 122 games at Port.
While I don't, agree, and I'll be sad and all that, I understand and I respect what the club's doing and the direction they're taking it, and that's fine. I've been around footy for long enough that I know that these decisions have to be made at times, and like I said, but at the same time I think that I've still got a good couple of years of footy left.
Rookie Will Snelling and Riley Bonner, the club's top pick in last year's draft, will make their AFL debuts against the Suns. Brisbane Lions veteran Daniel Merritt admits he's emotional ahead of his 200th and final game up against St Kilda on Sunday. But the Lions defender retains his sense of humour.
I know what I'm not going to miss is 70 inside 50s every week. But I'm
Merritt's career may have ended at another club. He was nearly traded at the end of 2014.
Back that I've stayed a one-club player. That's something that I'll finish my career really, really proud of. I was never really tempted to chase success elsewhere.
In 14 seasons at the Lions, Merritt played in just 2 finals. Tomorrow, it's Friday with Brian Lake. The Hawks Premiership defender previews the final round of the season. For more news and opinion, head to our website foxfooty.com.au. Thanks for watching AFL Tonight.
Friday night footy on Fox. Adelaide, West Coast. Live in HD with no ad breaks during play. Fox Footy.
The driver's seat. Mission control. It's where you run the show. Where you're the star. You don't just know where you want to go. You go for it. Every car has a seat for the driver. But with this one, you'll be in the driver's seat. New Mazda 3.